What may be regarded as the separate songs of the Ozel are exceedingly difficult of description, because they are so variable and at the same time so confluent. Though I have been acquainted with my favorite 10 years, and during most of the time I've heard him sing nearly every day, I still detect notes and strains that seem new to me. Nearly all of his music is sweet and tender, lapping from his round breast like water over the smooth lip of a pool, then breaking farther on into a sparkling foam of melodious notes, which glow with subdued enthusiasm, yet without expressing much of the strong gushing ecstasy of the bobolink or skylark. The most striking strains are perfect arabesques of melody composed of a few full, round, mellow notes, embodied with delicate trills which fade and melt in long, slender cadences. In a general way, his music is that of the stream refined and spiritualized. The deep booming notes of the falls are in it the trills of rapids, the gurglings of marching eddies, the low whisperings of low level reaches, and the sweet tinkle of separate drops oozing from the ends of mosses and failing into tranquil pools. Ozel never sings in choruses with other birds, nor with his kind, not but only with the streams, and like flowers that bloom beneath the surface of the ground, some of our favorite best song blossoms never rise above the surface of the heavier music of the water. I have often ever observed singing in the midst of beaten gray, his music completely buried beneath the water roar. Yet I knew he was surely singing by his gestures and movements of his bill. His food, as far as I have noticed, consists of all kinds of water insects, which in summer are chiefly procured along shallow margins, where he wades about, ducking his head under water and deftly turning over pebbles and fallen leaves with his bill, seldom choosing to go into the deep water where he has to use his wings in diving. He seems to be especially fond of the larvae of mosquitoes found in abundance attached to the bottom of the smooth rock channels where his current is shallow. When feeding in such clear places, he wades upstream, and often while his head is under the water and the swift current is deflected upward along the glossy curves of his neck and shoulders in the form of a clear crystalline shell, which fairly enclose him like a bell glass, the shell being broken and reformed as he lifts and dips his head, while ever and anon he slides out to where the too powerful current carries him off his feet. Then he dexterously rises on the wing and goes gleaning again in shallower places. But during the winter, when the stream banks are embossed in snow and the streams themselves are chilled nearly to freezing point, so the snow falling into them is stormy weather is not wholly dissolved, but forms a thin blue sludge, thus rendering the currents opaque. Then he seeks the deeper portions of the main rivers, where he may dive to clear water beneath the sludge, or he repairs to some open lake or mill pond at the bottom of which he feeds in safety. Then, thus compelled to betake himself to a lake, he does not plunge into it all at once like a duck, but always alights in the first place upon some rock or fallen pine along the shore, then flying out 30 or 40 yards, more or less according to the character or of the bottom, he alights with dainty glint on the surface, swims about, looks down, finally wakes up his mind and disappears with a sharp stroke of his wings. After feeding for 2 or 3 minutes, he suddenly reappears, showers the water from his wings with one vigorous shake, and rises abruptly into the air as if pushed up from beneath, comes back to his perch, sings a few minutes, and goes out to dive again, thus coming and going, singing and diving at the same place for hours. The ouzel is usually found singularly, rarely in pairs, excepting during the breeding season, and very rarely in threes or fours. I once observed three thus spending a winter morning in company upon a small glacier lake on the upper Merced, about 7,500 feet above the level of the sea. A storm had occurred during the night, but the morning sun shone unclouded, and the shadowy lake, gleaming darkly in its setting of fresh snow, lay smooth and motionless as a mirror. My camp chanced to be within a few of the feet of the water's edge, opposite a fallen pine, some of the branches of which leaned out over the lake. Here my three dearly welcome visitors took up their station and at once began to embroider the frosty air with their delicious melody, doubly delightful to me that particular morning, as I had been somewhat apprehensive of danger in breaking my way down through the snow-cloaked canyons to lowlands. The portion of the lake bottom selected for a feeding ground lies at a depth of 15 or 20 feet below the surface and is covered with a short growth of algae and other aquatic plants. Facts I had previously determined while sailing over on a raft. After alighting on the glassy surface, they occasionally indulged in a little play, chasing one another around in small circles. Then all three would suddenly dive together and then come ashore and sing. The ouzel seldom swims more than a few yards on the surface, for not being web-footed he makes rather slow progress, but by means of his strong, crisp wings he swims, or rather flies, with celerity under the surface, often to considerable distances, but it is notwithstanding the force of heavy rapids of his strength of his wings in the respect and most strikingly manifested. The following may be regarded as a fair illustration of his power of subaquatic flight. One stormy morning in winter, when the Merced River was blue and green with unmelted snow, I observed one of my ouzel perched on a snag out in the midst of a swift rushing rapid, singing cheerily as if everything was just to his mind. And while I stood on the bank admiring him, he suddenly plunged into the sludgy current, leaving his song abruptly broken off after feeding a minute or two at the bottom, and when one would suppose that he must inevitably be swept far downstream, he emerged just where he went down, alighted on the same snag, showered the water beads from his feathers, and continued the unfinished song, seemingly in tranquil ease, as if it had suffered no interruptions. The ouzel alone of all birds dares to enter a white torrent, and though strictly terrestrial in structure, no other place is so irrepressibly related to water, not even the duck, or the bold ocean albatross, or the stormy petrel. For ducks go ashore as soon as they finish feeding in undisturbed places, and many often make long flights over seldom from land to from lake to lake or field to field. The same is true for most of the aquatic birds, but the ouzel born on the brink of a stream or on a snag or boulder in the midst of it seldom leaves it for a single moment. Notwithstanding, he is often on the wing. He never flies over land, but whirled with a rapid quail-like beat above the stream, tracing all its windings. Even when the stream is quite small, say from over 5 to 10 feet wide, he seldom shortens his flight by crossing a bend, however abrupt it may be, and even when disturbed by meeting someone on the bank, he prefers to fly over one's head to dodging over the ground. When therefore his flight over a crooked stream is viewed endwise, it appears most strikingly wavered a description on it. The air of every curve with lightning-like rapidity.